Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Maisy Mok. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. China's exports registered their biggest drop in 3 years. SJohn Lee suggests a system for Hong Kong and mainland cities to join forces in disaster relief. And veteran BBC presenter Huw Edwards is identified as the person in a sex photo scandal. China's exports last month recorded the biggest decline in 3 years. The 12.4% slump came amid mounting stress in the struggling global economy. Chloe Feng reports.
China's trade weakened further last month as domestic and international demand continued to wane. Exports contracted for the second consecutive month, slumping 12.4% year-on-year to $285 billion. That compared with a drop of 7.5% in May, making June's decline the largest in 2.5 years. Imports fell for the fourth consecutive month, declining 6.8% year-on-year to $214 billion, down from a fall of 4.5% in May. China's trade surplus widened to $71 billion last month, from $65 billion in May. Shipments to Southeast Asia, the European Union, and the United States all fell by about 10 to 20% from a year earlier, but exports to Russia surged by over 90%.
主要发达经济体通胀仍处于高位。
Liu Daliang, a spokesman for the General Administration of Customs, blamed the poor export performance on high inflation levels in major advanced economies, as well as continuing geopolitical tensions, but said trade development overall has been stable. For the first half of 2023, China's exports fell by 3.2% year-on-year, while imports dropped 6.7%. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
Locally, Chief Executive SJohn Lee has proposed setting up a system for Hong Kong and mainland cities to help each other in disaster relief. Lawmakers supported the proposal, but questioned whether different rules and laws will hinder rescue missions. During today's question and answer session, Chief Executive SJohn Lee asked lawmakers for their opinions on setting up an emergency response mechanism with cities in the Greater Bay Area. The aim is to offer mutual assistance in disaster prevention and control, in line with Beijing's goal to strengthen disaster relief capability. Lee said Hong Kong and the mainland cities can provide rescue equipment to each other. He noted that in 2018, when Super Typhoon Mangkut's lashed Hong Kong, the city did not have enough electric saws to clear roads blocked by uprooted trees. The proposal was supported by several lawmakers, including Gary Chan. But the DAB legislator wanted to know whether rescue operations could be hindered because of different laws and regulations in Hong Kong, Macau, and Guangdong province. Lee admitted that this issue will need more attention. But he said there are existing arrangements with the mainland on rescue missions. For example, if there's a fire at Shenzhen Bay Port, Hong Kong personnel can conduct rescue work on both sides of the clearance area without notifying the Shenzhen government in advance. The same applies for Shenzhen rescuers. Lee added that mainland authorities are expected to meet Security Secretary Chris Tang soon to discuss the emergency response proposal. The body of a British businessman has been found on a mid-levels hillside following an overnight search. Firefighters recovered the body from the bottom of a 10-meter slope at the junction of Old Peak Road and Tregunter Path this morning. The 35-year-old man left his home on the peak at 6 p.m. yesterday to go hiking on his own. His wife alerted police at about 1 a.m. after she lost contact with him. The victim's body was found at 7 a.m. and he was declared dead at the scene. It's suspected that the victim had lost his footing and slipped down the hill. Former Demosisto activist Derek Lam has reportedly been questioned over whether he has given financial support to national security fugitive Nathan Law. Lam was once a core member of the disbanded pro-democracy group founded by Law. Sources said police searched Lam's apartment in Sai Ying Pun and took a statement from him. He was not arrested. Former legislator Law is wanted by police for allegedly inciting secession and colluding with foreign forces. His parents and brother were taken away 2 days ago for questioning before being released. The Ombudsman has urged government departments to handle complaints about trees more quickly. It said delays are unacceptable and could put the public at risk. Chloe Wong reports.
Trees on government sites are managed by different departments under the supervision of the Tree Management Office. The Ombudsman found that between 2018 and 2022, an average of 24,000 reports were made each year through a government hotline. Of these cases, 1,100 cases involved disputes over which departments were responsible. In 449 cases, it took more than 3 months before the complainants received a reply, with responses from the Lands Department taking the longest time. As of March last year, the department has still not replied to over 2,000 complaints. One complaint is still being investigated, even though it was made a year ago. Considering that tree conditions can change overnight, Ombudsman Winnie Chiu warned that delays are unacceptable and can endanger public safety. But she noted that the Tree Management Office, the TMO, has made improvements.
There is a very obvious leadership role and supervision role of the TMO now, which they are now undertaking, which in the past seems to be not so prominent. I think the importance accorded to the work of tree management by the departments concerned will be much improved.
She urged departments to set up a time frame to handle complaints. Chloe Wong, HKIBC.
The top diplomats of the world's 2 largest economies have met for the second time in a month in a further sign of a thaw in frosty Sino-US relations. Foreign Policy Chief Wang Yi and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken held talks on the sidelines of the annual ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in the Indonesian capital Jakarta. Wang and Blinken last met in Beijing in June. The Jakarta meeting came just hours after China's new ambassador to Washington, Xie Feng, met U.S. Assistant Secretary of Defense for Indo-Pacific Security, Eli Ratner, at the Pentagon. Last week, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen visited Beijing. The BBC's highest-paid news presenter, Huw Edwards, has been named by his wife as the person at the center of a sex photo scandal. Vicky Flint also revealed that her husband is in hospital, suffering from serious mental health issues. Sachin Katvi reports.
People in Britain were in shock on learning that veteran BBC News presenter Huw Edwards, a household name and face, is the person at the center of a scandal that gripped the nation for days. It was 61-year-old Edwards who informed Britons last September that Queen Elizabeth had died. He anchored the BBC flagship News at 10 for 2 decades and led the coverage on issues ranging from elections to international sporting events. Britons were kept guessing after the tabloid The Sun reported last week that a high-profile BBC presenter had paid $45,000 3 years ago for explicit photos of a 17-year-old. The speculation ended when Edwards' wife Vicky Flint identified him as the person at the center of the allegations. She said he's in hospital with serious mental health issues, adding that he will respond to the allegations when he recovers. A police investigation concluded there was no criminal wrongdoing. But the Sun's reporting has been questioned, while the BBC is struggling to defend itself following a barrage of criticism over the way it has handled the case. Sachin Katwi, HKIBC.
Hong Kong stocks are having the best week so far since January, as the tech sector surged on a pledge of support from Beijing. Regional markets also rallied on speculation that the upward trend of U.S. interest rates is nearing an end as inflation in the United States eases. Chloe Fong reports.
Better than expected U.S. inflation data and China's renewed support for the tech industry gave the Hong Kong stock market a positive run for the fourth consecutive session. The Hang Seng Index headed north from the opening, closing with a robust 2.6% gain, mainly fueled by tech shares. The rally came as state TV released footage of Premier Li Qiang meeting executives from tech heavyweights, including ByteDance, Alibaba Cloud, JD.com, and Meituan. Li urged local governments to support a platform economy. Alibaba shot up 3.2%, Meituan advanced 5.7%, and JD.com soared 6.4%. The National Economic Planner earlier praised tech giants for investing in China's chip, new energy, and agricultural development, indicating that a years-long regulatory crackdown is over. Across the Asia-Pacific region, major indices rose after data showed U.S. inflation cooled in June to 3%, marking the smallest annual increase in 2 years. Underlying inflation, which excludes food and energy, also rose less than expected, signaling that the Federal Reserve could take a breather from monetary tightening after another possible rate hike later this month. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index ended the day up by 489 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Tencent was up $9.80, while Alibaba was up $2.90. Tracker Fund was up 49 cents, while HKEX was up $12.60. To the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, euro is at 8.7, while the British pound sterling is at 10.22, and the Australian dollar is at 5.3. And in the UK market, the London FTSE is currently up 23 points. Global public debts climbed to a record $92 trillion last year. Developing countries are feeling the biggest pinch, with half the world's population living in countries that spend more on debt interest payments than on health and education.
Because most of these unsustainable debts are concentrated in poor countries, they are not judged to pose a systemic risk to the global financial system. This is a mirage. 3.3 billion people is more than a systemic risk. It's a systemic failure. Markets may seem not to be suffering, yet people are.
59 civil servants were today honored for helping to search and rescue earthquake victims in Turkey in February. SJohn Lee presented them with certificates as the first winners of the Chief Executive's Award for Exemplary Performance. The awardees included medics and firefighters. Lee commended their bravery for rescuing 4 victims during their 9-day mission. Yu Man-yeon, the commander of the rescue team, thanked his colleagues for maintaining a professional attitude in a foreign and cold environment. The earthquake, which struck southern Turkey and neighboring Syria, claimed over 50,000 lives. A whale has been spotted on an extremely rare visit to Sai-Kung. A video from the Happy Haven Yacht Club shows the whale peeping out of the water. The club's sailing instructor managed to capture the whale on film before it disappeared back into the water. Some local newspapers suggest that it appears to be a bright swell. On to the weather now. Extremely hot in the afternoon tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 29 and 35 degrees. Expect similar oven-like conditions over the weekend. That's our main news for Thursday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Maisy Mok. Good night.